Hello everyone. Welcome to the work from home edition for today's daily news analysis by SRIRAM'S IAS, where we take up the important articles featuring in the Hindu newspaper and break them down for our understanding from the UPSC examination point of view. So let's start our today's discussion by taking the important articles which feature in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper. So let's start our today's session. These are the articles which we've taken up for our discussion, and let's start with our first article for the day. The first article which appears in the newspaper reads China's moves in the Indian Ocean. So, why is this article appearing in the newspaper? Because recently, China, through its China International Development Cooperation Agency, which is shortly known as CIDCA, held a meeting of the China Indian Ocean Region Forum. So, this is the new body which China has set up with 19 countries taking part in it in the recent meeting. So, this can be called as the new organization which China has to try and form in the Indian Ocean region. So, why is this organization important? Because the Indian Ocean itself has become very important in the past few decades. It was always important, but China has assumed more importance of it and has increased its economic presence as well as its military presence in Indian Ocean. So why is it important? Because Indian Ocean carries half of the world's container ships, one third of the world's bulk cargo traffic, and two-thirds of the world's oil shipments. And majority of these container ships and traffic belongs to China. And in order from the cargo to go from Europe or West Asian countries to China, it has to pass through the Indian Ocean. That is why the Indian Ocean has become very important. And these are known as the Indian Ocean littoral countries, those countries who form a boundary to the Indian Ocean. This is the Indian Ocean. So, in this backdrop, this meeting becomes important. So, we'll try to analyze what this China India Ocean Region Forum is all about, who all took part in it, what China wants to achieve with it, what are India's concern with it, and what is India's stand on it. So, let's analyze. So, let's first understand what were the key highlights of the meeting that took place. The theme of this China Indian Ocean Regional Forum was of development oriented. So the theme was shared development, theory and practice from the perspective of the blue economy. So who were the participating countries in this meet? Indonesia, Pakistan, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Maldives, Nepal, Afghanistan, Iran, Oman, South Africa, Kenya, Mozambique, Tanzania, Seychelles, Madagascar, Mauritius, Djibouti, Australia, and representatives of three international organizations were also present. So, if we go back to the map, we can see that in these Indian Ocean littoral countries, mostly everyone was present in this China organization meet, apart from one can say Yemen and India. So, apart from India, majority of these states, 19 countries were present in the meeting. So what did they talk on? The majority aspect which that was talked on about the disaster prevention in the Indian Ocean. So they talked on the marine disaster prevention and mitigation cooperation mechanism, where China proposed to establish a marine disaster prevention and mitigation cooperation mechanism between China and countries in the Indian Ocean region. And China expressed its willingness to provide necessary financial, material, and technical support to countries in need. Now, what is important over here to see is that why is China engaging with these countries and agreeing on disaster management plans? It is because it is through these initiatives, be that cooperating on disaster mitigation, cooperating on development partnerships, China makes inroads into these countries and it gets a window to partner itself with these countries and engage itself with these countries. And it is seen through previous evidence that in this journey, China gets excessive leverage over these countries, which is known as the debt trap diplomacy. So China has its own techniques of uh, increasing its leverage over these countries. So this is what goes on to the surface, and there are some other things which goes on beyond the background. So the first important thing which they talked on was about disaster prevention. So what is China seeking from the meet, as we are asking this question? So China is contending for influence in this strategic Indian Ocean region. So all of these activities which China is doing is done to increase its influence and its strategic presence. So therefore, it is making substantial investment in ports and infrastructure in several countries. Pakistan's Gwadar port is an example. Hambantota port of the Sri Lanka is an example. And recently, China has acquired Sri Lanka's Hambantota port on a 99-year lease, besides building the port at Pakistan's Gwadar. So how did it come to acquire the Hambantota port? Initially, China gave Sri Lanka loan to develop the Hambantota port. But when the Sri Lanka could not repay the loan back, China made a term and condition that it would take the port on lease. And now, practically for 99 years, the port belongs to Sri Lanka. So imagine a Chinese port presence, be that economic or military, is there in Sri Lanka, and we can all analyze the signs for it. So that is why China is increasingly in enlarging its presence in the Indian Ocean, and all of these are techniques to do so. So, what are the concerns then? So, India has taken a stand of caution with respect to this particular meeting, and therefore, India, even though the Chinese authorities have said that India was invited to this particular regional forum, India did not attend it because it feels that already there is an Indian Ocean Rim Association, which is an organization for Indian Ocean littoral countries in place, and there is no need for a new organization. Apart from that, there are certain added concerns with China that India feels is worry about. So how that is, first is of the debt diplomacy, which we talked about, where it gives loans to countries, and in the repayment, in the lack of repayment of that loans, it takes over the properties of that country. So it has been accused in engaging of debt diplomacy in these countries under the Belt and Road Initiative. This is done in the name of infrastructure development. And then in a significant development, since 2008, China has regularly deployed a contingent of naval warships in the Gulf of Aden and established its first foreign military base in Djibouti in 2017. Now, in order to locate this, we can look at this particular small point of a country, which actually stands at a very strategic point. That is this is this strait between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. This strait is overlooked by the country of Djibouti, and China has made sure that it has a military base in Djibouti. So all of these things in terms of military presence is also increasing for China. At the same time, India's absence is seen as an attempt to challenge India's traditional presence in the region amid apprehensions of politicization of the Indian Ocean region. And apart from this, there was also a recent visit of a Chinese military tracking vessel, the Yuan Wang 5, which was to dock at Sri Lanka. This was a few months ago, and if we remember from the news, this was done by China, and India heavily protested with respect to this. But still, the ship did dock at Sri Lanka, and therefore there are these apprehensions which India has. So what is then India's presence in this particular Indian Ocean region? So as we saw, India already is present in the Indian Ocean in the form of participation from the Indian Ocean Rim Association. So it is to act as a first responder during crisis in the littoral countries, and it is a part of the Indian Ocean Rim Association and also the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, and under the vision of the security and growth for all in the region, which is the Sagar policy. It has strong influence in the Indian Ocean region, where India-backed organizations like IORA have taken strong roots. So therefore, India's stand is that therefore there is no need for such an organization, where already an Indian Ocean Rim Association is in place. And even in that organization, India is a coordinator and initiator of the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, which was launched at the UN in September 2019. It has been trying to emerge as a net provider of information in the Indian Ocean region, and in that direction, it created the Information Fusion Center. This particular center is located in Gurgaon, or which is newly known as Gurugram, to assist member countries of the Indian Ocean region with real-time crisis information. Bangladesh, Mauritius, Maldives, Sri Lanka, and Seychelles have been part of the information support structure of India. So in this aspect, let's also understand from the examination point of view, what is the Indian Ocean Rim Association? This was the organization which was established in 1997 and is a regional forum that seeks to build and expand understanding and mutually beneficial cooperation through a consensus-based evolutionary and non-intrusive approach. So this is already an organization in place and it has 23 member states and 9 dialogue partners. So what are the 23 members? Australia, Bangladesh, Comoros, France, India, Indonesia, Kenya, Madagascar, Malaysia, Maldives, Mauritius, Mozambique, Seychelles, Singapore, Somalia, South Africa, Sri Lanka, Tanzania, Thailand, and the UAE and Yemen. And China is a dialogue partner in the Indian Ocean Rim Association. So a question can come in the prelims examination asking who all are the members who are a part of the Indian Ocean Rim Association but are not did not attend the China Regional Forum. So the countries which we can highlight is the United Arab Emirates, Yemen. These are some of the countries who the Comoros. These countries are the ones who are part of the Indian Ocean Rim Association but did not attend the meet with China. And is China a part of the Indian Ocean Rim Association? So no, China is not a part and is a dialogue partner in the Indian Ocean Rim Association. So this was the important information and discussion with respect to this particular article. And with this, we'll move on to our next article for the day. Now, the next article which appears in the newspaper reads, why has the Reserve Bank of India introduced an E Rupee? So, this particular article appears in the newspaper because recently the Reserve Bank of India launched the digital rupee, and this was launched on a pilot basis, which would mean that this would be a initial project which would be tested in few regions, and the feedback and development from that particular pilot project would be then analyzed and a larger project would be established. So this is known as a pilot project. So from the examination point of view, we'll understand what exactly is this a digital rupee, what is an e-rupee, how is it different from the cryptocurrency, what are its advantages in the Indian economy, and what are some of the challenges that the critics have. So let's understand about this digital rupee or the e-rupee. So what is going to be done in this pilot project? So the first phase of this pilot project will cover select location and banks in a closed user group comprising participating customers and merchants. So this would be done in order to track the developments of this particular project. This pilot will initially cover the four cities of Mumbai, New Delhi, Bengaluru, and Bhubaneswar, where customers and merchants will be able to use the digital rupee or e-rupee. So according to the central bank, the pilot will test the robustness of the entire process of the digital rupee creation, distribution, and retail usage. So how will this work? This e-rupee is actually a central bank digital currency, or what is known as the CBDC, as it is the digital form of currency notes issued by a central bank. So it is a sovereign or entirely independent currency issued by the central bank, in this case the RBI, and it would be in accordance with the country's monetary policy. So how will this be different from the cryptocurrency? The fundamental difference from the cryptocurrency is that the cryptocurrency such as the Bitcoin or Ethereum are private in nature. They are not sovereign or they are not backed by the country's central bank. In this case, this particular digital rupee would be the central bank digital currency, which would mean that it is backed by the RBI. So it is a legal tender. Anyone paying via the digital rupee, the other person would have the obligation to accept this as money, because this particular e-rupee is going to be considered as a form of a legal tender by citizens, government bodies, enterprises, everybody. It has to be recognized and it has to be accepted by everyone. So who all can use it? Either normal citizens can use it for their payments, or it can be used by the businesses to other businesses as well. So this is the properties with respect to the e-rupee. Now, what is with respect to its interest? If digital rupee is being stored in the bank, will it gain any interest on the currency? So RBI currently is not kept that option open, because it is not in favor of e-rupee with interest, because people might withdraw money from banks and convert it to digital rupee, causing the banks to fail. Hence, in current scenario, there is no interest that is accrued on maintaining any e-rupee. So these are the properties. And when we talk about global scenario, how many of the countries are indulging in such kind of digital currencies? So as of July 2022, 105 countries were exploring central bank digital currency or CBDC, and 10 countries have already launched their own The first of which was the Bahamian Sand Dollar in 2020, and the latest was Jamaica's Jamdex. These are some of the countries which have launched their own central bank digital currencies. So let's look at now the advantages which can be of this particular e-rupee. First is reducing dependency on dollar, because India can establish digital rupee as a superior currency of trade. It being digital, it would allow currency to be traded much faster in a digital form. That is why it would help its talks with Russia, UAE, Saudi to allow settlement of trade in the Indian rupee. So the advent of e-rupee will help in this. Then the second would be cutting cost of maintaining physical currency. If most currency is being stored in a digital form, it would it has the potential to reduce dependency on cash. So therefore, the cost of printing, transporting, storing, and distributing currency can be reduced. Then regulated intermediation. So along with reducing operational costs, it will offer the public the same features as any private virtual currency without any risks associated with it. So it would have control and regular intermediation by the RBI, which would make sure that its integrity and stability of the rupee is maintained. Then globalization of the payment system, which comes from the fact that it would reduce its dependency on dollar. This can enable a more real time and cost effective globalization of the payment system. It could eliminate the need for any expensive network of correspondent banks to settle cross border payments. So where there's a system going on the SWIFT system, these kind of new technologies will help ease the cross-border payments for countries and organization of these countries. And for Indians working abroad, this would be an added advantage because sending money home will become simpler and cheaper, resulting in huge savings for India, which is the world's top recipient of remittances. These are some of the advantages that we can say is of the newly formed e-rupee. But what are some of the challenges associated with e-rupee? First is the privacy and security concern, because e-rupee has the capacity to accumulate sensitive user and payment data on a massive scale, and in the wrong hands this data can be easily used to spy on the private transactions. So, and we recently heard the news of health data being attacked via a ransomware attack in the AIMS hospital, Delhi. So data and digital data is vulnerable in the country, and therefore the security concern with respect to e-rupee does stand. Then what about the digital divide and financial illiteracy? Because there is high level of digital illiteracy in India, which is going to be a big challenge because then not many people would be able to access e-rupee. So India has a rank of 73 out of 120 countries for internet literacy, and digital services are also not available in local languages, which is a major barrier to financial literacy. So this is also a hindrance. Then we have the acceptability concern, where traceability of e-rupees transactions could become a deterrent to its uptake in India, where cash transactions are still usually popular. So how much people accept it, therefore the critics are not much enthusiastic about the new e-rupee that has come. So what can be the way forward? First of all is that we should have a secured digital environment. India's regulatory systems need to catch the evolving risks of data privacy and guide banking institutions to place appropriate safeguards and cushions to avoid any personal data breach. Second, have strict KYC norms. A digital rupee may well be a boon, but there is a need to enforce strict compliance of know your customers or KYC norms. Just a second. KYC norms, which would prevent the digital currency's use for terror financing or money laundering. And the digital divide for India also needs to be taken care of. So these are some of the things that need to be taken care in order for the e-rupee to flourish India. Here is where we end our discussion for today, and we'll meet again tomorrow with the important articles from the newspaper. Thank you.